representing now. And you're representing Mesh, I believe, right? Consensus Mesh? Okay. Cool. So the PGP member should have access to, and that includes you, Sonal, now, should have access to our notes document that we use for meetings. What I suggest we do today, just a second, I need to shift virtual windows here. So I'm looking at the right thing. What I suggest we do today, because we have some guests with us, is to start with our guests, and then we'll go through the rest of the agenda. But first, for our two guests, are we expecting a third person? Are we expecting Guillaume or just the two of you? The two of you. Okay, great. Then what I'd like to ask, first of all, any objections from the rest of the group to adjusting our agenda that way? Okay. So then what I'd like to ask is if you'd like to introduce yourselves, and then and then I guess you can pull up the document and sort of walk us through it and what you have in mind. There'll be an opportunity for us to ask questions, and then with you here, and then we'll say thank you, and you guys can jump off the call, and we'll continue with our meeting, and we'll let you know if we have any other feedback. Okay, excellent. So take it away.
Yeah, but first, I hope we can record this meeting because I feel Guillermo should be in this meeting, and if he's not here, that he can watch it.
So let's see. I guess I think we could record this part, and then when you guys leave, we could stop recording. Is that possible, Claudia?
In that case. Okay, how about this? Like, I will work with Angel to capture the meeting, all the items that he should be following up. So
I can also record. It's not a problem. Sorry, I can record the meeting.
Yeah, you will not use for any purpose that is legal or financial related. It's just to make sure our team is well aware of what's going on.
No problem.
If you guys want to just record locally, Claudia, let's just keep it simple.
Okay.
If you want to record locally while you're on, that's fine. And then when you leave the meeting, clearly that's the end of the recording. So. Okay. All right.
Thank you. So my name is Weiwu from Smart Token Labs. We work on TokenScript. I think it's self-introduction or technology introduction, right? So basically that's it. Right now I'm in Spain, and I will be living in Spain for the next foreseeable future.
Thank you. So we'll have you guys go ahead and present, and then just for this portion of the meeting, Claudia, would you be willing to take notes on any questions that we ask and answers that they provide? You'll see under the main topics. Yeah, well, or Chet, you're already there. Whichever one of you, you're already looking at it, Chet. And you're muted. Okay.
I am on the phone, yes. Yes. It's a little bit small though, but if you can change your screen resolution to a smaller one, or if you can make the text enlarged.
You just zoom in, that'll be good enough.
Yeah, good, thank you.
I love the name of it. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, it's called TokenScript.
Yeah, so TokenScript reflected our belief that among all the things blockchain enabled, token is the most important thing, and the reason being that a token gives possibility for web services to be integrated. Well, in the past, they have to be integrated towards a center point, such as Google. So, for example, today websites integrates into Google Calendar, into Gmail, and into Facebook. Every website has a connection to the center points. But in reality, each functionalities can be divided into a smaller portion and managed by token. And because the way we see token as not only the financial instruments, but also as an integrating component of the future tokenized web, we envision that technology has to be standardized not only on the blockchain but also in the client, in the browser, so that a website that utilizes a few tokens can run this token script in a separate runtime space that communicates with the website. Because if token script, any token logic has to be run in a web service, it would violate the trust basis, and it would not serve as a good integration point for a fully functional decentralized web. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So basically, that's the gist of it, and then the document later goes on to explain that it needs to run in the user's wallet. And although we do envision there will be a bridge period of time where TokenScript has to work in the browser page of the website that uses the tokens, but ultimately it should work in the user's wallet, and it should have a data interface as well as a limited user interface that allows users to interact with the website using their tokens in the wallet. So it goes on to explain that there are a few components. There are files, which is the enclosure of the runtime environment, runtime code and user interface, and trust parameter. And there are four things that we think is mandatory for anything like TokenScript to be an interconnecting component for the future web. It has to be trustworthy, which means if the website shows a token being used on the website, the token is actually being used. For today, if you go to a website that says you have an ape, you may or may not have one because websites simply display one for you. And the second one being interoperability, which means the token and the website should be loosely coupled. And the user should be able to use new tokens that the website isn't aware of, as long as it satisfies the needs. One example being like you need to pay Ether with a token. It doesn't matter how the token generates Ether, either from line of credit or from withdrawal. It doesn't matter. As long as it can provide Ether, the website should accept it. And the other example might be a token that work as a component, as a storage for user's preference. It doesn't matter how user manage the preference, as long as the website knows, for example, user's language preference or which kind of game the user wants to play. So that's about interoperability. Privacy refers to the website only learns about tokens that the user chooses to use on the website. In this way, you can view a token like a cookie, except that this is the cookie where the user gives websites access, not the website gives to the user. And for that reason, only the tokens that is relevant and is accessible by the website, and the token information can be hidden from the website. So for example, if you have a token that is you have Ether token that has $1 million balance, the website can access that token to make payment, but they cannot learn the balance from that token. So there will have to be a privacy barrier. And finally, security, which means that the token-related transactions should be generated on the websites that users generated by the token script under the request of the underlying website, not that the website generates transactions for the users. So today, websites generate transactions for the users. It's a little bit like e-commerce website generating transactions for you to withdraw currency, your credit card balance. That is not appropriate. So we think that TIPS are the dependencies for the future token technology to make it really workable as a replacement for the center points such as Google, and allow for new innovation and markets. So this goes on to explain all the features. How do we define TIPS? And then we goes on to explain the roles such as token issuers, what the token issuers would see TokenScript, and how the wallets will see TokenScript, and it goes on to explain details. And I think that's the gist of it. I think I'll pause here and get a bit of feedback, because I don't know how much of you have been involved in Web3 and how much what we do makes sense to you.
Well, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Where does the token script actually live? Like the logic for the token? Where is that on chain, or is it? It's just a little unclear to me where you.
So there are two things: where the files are physically stored, and where is the runtime environment for the file, right?
Okay.
There are two things. So about where the files is stored, we don't standardize it yet. There is a EIP on where it might be stored on IPFS, but we write the EIP simply because people ask for it. But we don't intend to enforce where the code is stored. The reason we don't want to enforce it is because I give you an example to say why the code we don't want to enforce where the code is stored. We want instead we want to have a layered approach where the implementation decides. For example, if you have a subway token, and you can use that token, maybe you can use that token as a collection, and by the end of the year, they will reward you for commuting more than 200 days per year. Maybe there are games designed for the token, but when you really when you really enter the subway, only one function of that token matters, which is to reduce the count of the token by one, token used by one. So when you tap your mobile phone on the subway where the token is neutralized, the subway might use near-field communication, NFC, to send you a minimized version of the token script, simply to finalize a transaction where you can reduce the count by one. And when you use a token on the website or even in a computer game, the token might load a lot of other code. For example, to display a beautiful animal that go with your token, maybe you choose tiger or whatever, and it can make a game character. Then it has to load a lot more assets. So usually the context by which token is used is most accurately aware of what part of TokenScript and what version of TokenScript is applicable for that scenario. So they might transmit through NFC, or they might put it on the website because its internet is not connected to the internet. They might offer a download from the Wi-Fi access point, or maybe it is on-chain. So we don't specify it so that the implementation can do whatever they like. It's the same like how HTTP is not the same as HTML. You can serve HTTP from FTP, yeah. So the runtime environment of TokenScript ideally is in the mobile secure zone. And because ideally token should be as a service that provides connection to all of the apps. So one example being if you let's say you have a hotel booking, okay, and you booked a hotel from booking.com. So the app might help you to get the hotel booking as a token. However, later you might auction that token on a different app, which might be an auction app not provided by booking.com. So different apps might access your token differently, and the token should be considered as an operating system service in this case, to provide integration to all of the applications. But if this cannot be achieved in the next 10 years, the way we view it is that it should be a browser component. So TokenScript runtime environment is a little bit like a browser plugin, except that the browser plugin is kind of horizontal and token is kind of vertical, in the sense that we have a lot of tokens and we have limited number of plugins, and more than one token can work on one website. They just work in different fashion, but they have their runtime environment similar to how a plugin runtime environment is managed. Of course, in both cases, The runtime environment is directly connected to the blockchain, not connected to blockchain through the website they're accessing to provide trust.
So you basically have for a particular token, this is Andreas, by the way. So for a particular token, you have a DApp template that encapsulates all the functionalities of that particular token, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Except that we don't use the word DApp. We think DApp is just an early,
Okay, you're exposing, it's a runtime environment that exposes endpoints.
That's right, based on blockchain.
Oh, it connects to the blockchain, right? So there are endpoints that are exposed that can be utilized by other applications, either mobile or browser, right? So it's you're envisioning this as a lower level real service that runs on the OS.
Yes. And also I need to point out it has to have UI components because it's not purely endpoint because the user cannot be sure if the website is accessing endpoints correctly. So one way to say that is if the website asks you to rent your car because the website wants to rent your car, and let's say your car is a token, and the website wants to say, leave the car to us, we will find customers for your car and give you revenue. And you cannot trust the website to have correctly called endpoint, which says get user authorization. The website may access the endpoint which says transfer car ownership instead. You know what I mean? So when the website wants to users to when the website wants to access the user's car, the user's token script would take over and ask user if the user wants to rent the website to the car, rent the car to the website. Instead of the website asking the user that question and call the corresponding endpoint. So it's not faceless. It's not without user interface.
By the way, the silence here is people thinking, because most of us have either very strong Web 2 or very strong Web 3 background. Some have both. And so we're just sort of thinking about the architecture. And part of those thoughts is like, does this introduce new, new centralization points as well? Because one of the primary motivations for this that you pointed out at the very beginning
and Apple is not worth pursuing. So the reason we want to decentralize it is because without these centralized points, with these centralized points currently every website connects to, innovation needs permission. So if somebody wants to, for example, tokenize the car, then before Apple is able to do that into Apple Wallet, there's no practical way to integrate that to all websites. Otherwise, every car vendor will have the access point, and every car rental website will access to 100 car vendors. There's Toyota, there's Tesla, you name it. So for such integration, such nice thing, centralization provided, centralization will also kill it because they won't find a business model, or because the thing was too trivial for Google to build a token model for it. So why don't we allow it to be run as a free market, and everybody who can use blockchain to build a token, other websites and services can integrate to it, utilize it, sell it and buy it, or use the function. Now, for that to happen, we need to have an open framework. So there is really a market-oriented thinking. How do we release the power of the market, free market, for the benefit of everybody? And then centralization is in the way, rather than we do this all for decentralization.
Okay. Thank you. Sounds good. For time reasons, let me just ask for the PGP members, if you have any critical questions in terms of understanding what they're trying to do, please ask them now. What I'd like to do is steer the questions in the direction of this becoming a project of the community projects, right? And so just, you know, to our visitors, the kinds of questions you're going to get are around standardization and Ethereum and whatever, because that's where this group tends to focus. And so don't be surprised when we start going in that direction rather than just asking you.
That's exactly, I think, where the most of the effort should go to. Because if we talk about blockchain, people usually consider it as a product. But if we talk about integrating the web and all of the websites uses tokens, then it's no longer like my blockchain is better, your blockchain scenario. It's like there has to be a way to standardize it so apps can integrate to as many tokens as they wish to, and new tokens can get onboarded easily.
Right. Perhaps we could go, perhaps we could scroll down to the sections where it's not describing the project, but maybe a little bit lower where, you know, we ask about who would be involved and things like that, because those are the ones that, yeah. So, okay. So okay. You too far. Go back up. Let's look at, say, question. Okay, keep going up. Project contribution to the goals. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. So number 6, let's start with question number 6. So, so the reason you're saying to host is to get knowledge and get people with domain knowledge. So understand that the goal here of the community projects is to provide a standardization point where you'll actually write standard specifications so that multiple entities can conform to the standard. So it's not just about one implementation, it's about making sure that others can implement to it as well. So the goal should, you know, so what we normally see is, you know, you're bringing it here because you want to actually develop a standard. And so it sounds more like you're seeking input on your project right now than seeking to develop a standard. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer that question, you're right, and we should update this paragraph. But to give you a bit of background, we have started this exploration since 4 years ago when I was working in the bank as well as this current startup, and I came to realize the difficulty of getting it right. So I think it will be a project of several years to standardize it, and the website start to be able to deploy issuers and websites start to deploy code, and the wallets have their own implementation. So we are not entirely sure if we are getting it right because we don't know the underlying business model of TokenScript. It's not like Microsoft Word. We already know what we want as our end result. We just don't. We just need to standardize it so everybody can play on the same field as Microsoft Word. This is rather new. So I think it just reflected my attitude at that time, but you're right.
And what are the expected deliverables? I think there's a question that's about that.
So in the long term, there are a few. In the long term, I'm talking about a few years in the future, there should be a runtime specification so that browsers and platforms such as Samsung mobile phone maker can make runtime environment for token, and specification for the file format, and specification for the attestation schema. Well, the attestation is a component we realize that is needed for tokens to work. For example, if you have a car, the repair record will not be stored on the blockchain because it's sensitive and too much data, and they will be issued as a attestation, quickly signed message to go with the token. So that has to be standardized in schema format.
Okay, and yes, you did list these. Thank you.
So that is really like a token runtime environment. Really, taking it from like the Java runtime environment. It's really a token runtime environment that allows token functionality to be executed independent of any other or within the context of other applications. Is that
Yes.
really what it is?
Yes.
So then I think that is sort of like the essence of that. So you want to write a specification for a token runtime environment that allows token functionality to be executed by other applications, right?
Mm-hmm. So I believe there will be runtime environment embedded in the browser, runtime environment embedded in mobile phone, and some browser plugins might provide their own because they think the browser's inbuilt version is not good enough, and game engines such as Unity would want to have their version.
Right, but there's like it's like the Java runtime environment is standardized.
Yes, but we need to consider TIPS, which is the features needed for token to work cross-platform. Go back in the beginning of the. So it's a Java runtime environment plus TIPS.
Yeah. So like TRE, right? So it's so I understand. So, but I'm trying to abstract this out into sort of like a standard, and rather than having a runtime environment for Unity or something like that, it's like, or you want to define specifications for token runtime environments in different contexts, for the browser, for mobile, for Unity, for game engines, right?
Yeah, where the token logic is needed. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just trying to tease out sort of like the more general statement that is less specific to like TokenScript as a technology, and more to the if I want to build something like TokenScript to run in a so that I have so the token functionality executes properly in a browser, right? It's like what do I need to build? So how can I ensure that if it says TRE, it actually executes TRE, right? So it's that sort of thing. And I think that makes sense. So it's rather than getting feedback on a project, it's more as like, can we define runtime environments for token functionalities, right? Given that there are no token standards, so that's but there are no Java is just with the Java runtime environment is still a standardized thing. So yeah, I'm just trying to tease out here I think you understand where I'm trying to go.
I think what you're getting at is that there's this is not a project to standardize TokenScript. This is a project to standardize the runtimes for TokenScript. It's like the difference between you're trying to write Java, or you're trying to write what are the requirements for a Java runtime engine. Those are different things, right?
Exactly.
The Java programming language is different from defining how runtime engines are supposed to work.
And I think, yes, on top of that, how the runtime engine work with this environment, because it's heavily integrated. But that's the part, and you're right, it's more about that.
Right, and how open are you to adjustments in TokenScript?
How open I am to what?
Adjustments in TokenScript.
Okay, we so you see what we have as code base or experiments we did with the token issuers is only a small piece of what needed for the tokenized web to work. And I think we're really on the early stage. So to put it this way, everything is adjustable because we don't know what the final product will be. But I think it's important to standardize it even at this early stage, because it's not a product, it's interconnecting component. And it should be, yeah.
We just want to make sure, when I'm asking that question, I'm trying to understand if there are any boundaries, because sometimes we'll get people to bring projects to us, and what they want is for us to rubber stamp something. They'll say, this part is out of scope and you can't touch it. So we need to know if there are parts that are out of scope
No, there isn't. So we need to be really humble about it. This really is a is a big thing that if it makes or breaks. If it works, it will be people can say blockchain has a utility value because this is how it works. So how many people know about blockchain? Even the experts don't know about blockchain because who can tell me what is the use of blockchain? So yeah, we are very humble about this. Anything is changeable.
Okay. So does that answer your question, Andreas, for now?
Yeah, I think that's I was just trying to it's like tease out how this could be framed properly in a way that makes sense and is a bit more general.
Understood. I think there's probably some reworking of the description of this project that may be needed, but I want to get to a couple of other questions that are some meta questions. So you have a repo already with it. Where is it hosted now? I mean, what is the status of what you have so far? You listed some places where some repos where things live, but I'm just wondering kind of what is the status of that? I haven't looked at the repos themselves, so I don't know what you started to write already.
So we in 2018 we thought this project, the idea of tokenizing the web is something easy because the first time it was done is like JavaScript HTML and it was done over 9 months. So I thought the second time it would be easy too. So at that time we quickly ramped up a format, an XML-based format that is extendable in certain ways and to support a few token use cases such as token-based event tickets. We did the FIFA ticket and token-based experiments, and we threw this technology around the vendors, and we realized that to make it right, it takes a lot more effort. The code base was largely the result of experimentation and Alpha Wallet implementation of this experimental standard. Now we don't call it standard anymore because we know we are pretty far away from that experimental thing, a recommendation or whatever. The code base is what is left of the 2018-2019 attempt to standardize it and provide a reference implementation Alpha Wallet. However, in 2020 was a DeFi year, and people don't talk about web much. And then we have NFT where the users are mostly immediately interested in how to render display token and how to buy and sell them. So we have learned a lot about tokens, but we didn't update the code base, so it's a little bit stale. So right now the code base contains XML schema, contains about 100 or so token scripts written in that schema, contains a JavaScript-based runtime environment with poorly written or non-existent specification for the runtime environment, which is basically what is given in code is the thing, yeah, that's what we have.
Okay.
And the document, which is largely based on the idea why we need to use TokenScript and why it's important to have TIPS. So that's the status.
Okay, so you have basically, you had an initial prototype running. The documentation is not up to date with, the implementation needs more updating and the documentation as well.
Almost non-existent. All the existing documents are conceptual, like what token would enable and how websites might use tokens, stuff like that, and why they might need a runtime environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I have a couple other questions I want to hit. So assuming that this work came here, would you be planning to move the repo to Oasis, which is the organization that runs the work?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because that's how we normally do it for projects.
Yeah.
Let's see. So with respect to involving others, so one of the things that we noticed, it looked, throughout the document as if, again, this is just a rough view throughout what you wrote, as if you you're the primary contributors right now, and you haven't really had others contributing necessarily. It's not clear anyway. And so one of the questions we had is, who all is participating from other organizations? We actually need, we're looking to see how many organizations might participate.
We do have collaboration. These people largely has something to do with us in either because of business or because of the associations. So, for example, Aarhus University was involved in the cryptography based on attestation, and we have vendors involved in creating the tokens that suits their market needs. Yeah, I'm busy. Ask mom. Okay, still okay. Oh, really? And then check Christina. Christina. Okay. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. I will do it for you later. So we have vendors and which, for example, the car company, which contributed in a way of providing us with use cases and work with our engineer on creating early prototypes for those. We have a loose collaboration with Huawei, but it didn't work in the end because they believed in the vision for a while, and when the market cooled down, they don't believe it anymore. So anyway, that's the collaboration we have. What we don't have heavily, we have a bit of community support, but we don't have much. And the reason we don't have much community support, like a self-employed open source developers, the reason we don't have much of their support is because they don't see the need for tokenizing until very recently. So if you talk about like having tokenized the car and you can rent the car to someone, it was pretty not considered as typical blockchain story. And even a normal developer whom I meet on DevCon, for example, if I talk about this with them, they will say, it sounds like something you will find a company to do. And right now I'm interested in doing DAO. I think it's important community realize the power of token and free market, because that has been the driving force in the previous Web 1 and Web 2. So I hope there's a conversion point.
Okay. If you scroll down to the current project maintainer, so this is again getting at the same notion of, you know, who has been involved, where they're from, and so I think one of the things we're always looking for is to make sure that any project that starts has multiple different entities working on it, because if it's just you, it's not a standard, right?
Apparently, yes.
Yeah. So, so one of the things that we'd be looking for in here, I think a little bit more than we see right now, is who are the other organizations that you would expect to reach out to, assuming the work comes here. Who are the other organizations that you would want to try to bring on to do this work? And in particular, normally we have a requirement of having several organizations. Actually, I forget whether the number is 3 or 5 now in order to start. And the reason for this is that, you know, companies will be excited when they start and then they may drop off. And we don't ever want to be in a situation where it ends up with one company defining it. That's a failure from a standards perspective.
It's also a failure from my perspective. So I totally agree with that. The company we want to onboard generally are in these categories. Number one, industrial associations, which might help standardize in how token work in their industry. They might have a view of how tokens should work. For example, airline points, they might have a view that there should be a balance for the token. Even if you don't specify there's a balance, there should be a numeric thing that can support it when it's needed. And the second being the vendors, especially the software vendors, especially IT software and hardware vendors, especially browser and mobile phone. So I'm looking at Samsung because Apple is helpless here. And I'm looking at Chrome or Firefox to get a bit of help from them. 2 years ago, we tried to talk to them. They think that the blockchain will disappear one day. But now I think if we try to approach them again, I think they think differently. So the other party we want to approach are the actual issuers of tokens, such as the ape issuers. They want to see how to build the ecosystem, and we want tokens to work with that. And finally, the game community. So that's the one from my perspective I should reach out to. Maybe there are standardized organizations I should talk to, but I'm ignorant about that.
Okay. We will be sending you some, some sort of formal feedback. I say formal. It's just going to be something that says, hey, we'd like to see this in the charter, and so on. And what we just talked about is the kind of thing that probably is going to come as a request to show up in the charter proposal. And one part of it will be a discussion about how much work we want to see you do getting those commitments before we take the project on, just to make sure that there's enough support, right? We're not saying everybody, but there may be a minimum of 3 to 5, somewhere in there, just to demonstrate that, you actually have that support. Because without that, we're not going to be able to move forward, right? Excellent, excellent. So, and again, I hope you understand this is to make sure that it's a success. That's the reason for these questions, right?
I completely agree. I absolutely don't feel that you are twisting my arm at all. So we originally 2018 when we started the first round demonstrating car token stuff, we really actively got a lot of people coming in, but then there was crypto winter and people dropped out. So we just we always have this attitude, but it's just some of the players we used to work don't even exist now. So now we have to do it again. Yeah,
I understand that problem. Okay, so the one other question that I need to ask is that we are the EEA community projects and I think the way we've described it is Ethereum first, not Ethereum only. But what that means is, it's very important to us that we see people with a plan to deploy on or support Ethereum. Now you're talking about tokens in general. So is there something you can say other than just, well, of course Ethereum will benefit like everybody will benefit? Because if that's true, then we could ask whether we're the right organization for it.
okay. Yeah. Okay. The way I see it is Ethereum created the model of center of trust through smart tokens, but it has to find its use cases. You might say, okay, maybe other blockchains have the same needs, but that's how our project gets started. I don't know how. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Angel. Yeah.
Because of the need you saw in the Ethereum space, even though others may have the need as well.
Yes,
Okay.
but the major need is that you cannot produce a trust center without providing the integration to all of the websites to go to it. And it's just something that is on the way. Actually, I think it's crucial, something on the way for Ethereum to be as useful as, for example, when the jet engine is useful because it takes passengers to the sky. Ethereum has to be useful for not for just being very trustworthy. It has to use that to do something.
Sure. Okay, excellent. I think I'll just say from our perspective, if the first examples you use to demonstrate this aren't ERC20 tokens, but there's something else on some other network, then we'd probably be a little, sort of grumpy at okay, why are you starting there? That's the kind of thing I'm getting at. So I don't think you're going that way, but I just want to make sure you understand that, we're fans of Ethereum, okay? But we're practical. We know that the world is a multi-chain world and will be. But we always need for the projects that we bring on to have a strong justification for initial use, deployment, whatever, on Ethereum or using Ethereum-based solutions, which of course ERC20 tokens are. Okay. I mean, obviously, I told you what answer I was looking for, but that's a solid answer, right? So, okay. Any questions from anyone else? I've been asking a lot of questions here.
Yeah,
I
so
guess,
which
so-
standards are, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess I want to know if we start this, will we get let's say maybe Oasis page on this so people can watch progress there and maybe join calls from there. I mean, as a facility.
Yeah. So maybe Claudia, do you want to talk about like what Baseline has? And so, as an example, what I should say, or layer 2, right? And so what they would get.
Sorry, I just missed the first bit of the question. Why? Well, could you repeat? Sorry.
So will Oasis work similar, for example, like Genome Foundation, where the project gets a web page that lists the current communication roadmap and ways to join that course?
Yes, so it is basically up to the projects if they want that, but yes, we can provide a web page with the charter, with a blog. It's there's things that are up to the community to provide, but we can discuss that in more detail. But if I can send you a couple of examples via email, so you can check that out. Our projects, the Oasis project, some as part of the EEA community projects, but other Oasis projects as well, so you can have an idea what that might look like and how the projects are using that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Any other questions, either from you guys or from PGB members?
Yeah, I was just questioning what other SDOs, since you mentioned that, are you targeting to get into the mix as potential supporters, like anything around like mobility or telecommunications or insurance or banking or no, not businesses. You were specifically referring to standards organizations, industry bodies.
Oh, okay. So it's me, right? Okay. So for example, we would okay. I'm going to speak from my, my knowledge is not great, but let me see from what I would immediately ask them. Okay, I would ask, for example, this is how we envision car insurance as a token would work, and that would work on this website, on that website, on auction website, or on car service website. You use the insurance to get car service. This is how we envision it should work, but the industrial people will probably say that's not how it would work, and we cannot standard in that way. And so that's the reason I need I feel the need for including the industry standard body, industries associations. But which industry, I'm not entirely sure. I think at first, tokenization will benefit something similar to airline points royalty program. I think these people will be the industry associations will be talking most with. But eventually, everything smart, like car or door or smart vending machine, and anything that users that holds has value, there might be a industry association who will know better how tokenization would affect their industry. And we hope to fix something early on instead of learning and regret we didn't do it properly.
Right. I think you're saying you're not going to define standards for other industries where there are standards of how
but we need to know if the facility provided allows them to do the work.
Oh, yes, right. Whether what is provided by the solution here allows them to do what's needed according to their standards. Okay.
Like usage-based insurance that you're you're doing real-time payments through the apps.
Yes, we are not going to say that, okay, these are the standard fields to be in the car insurance token. We are going to only to say, will this work? And if industry body will want to define their industry token, like the fields, like how to get car insurance for the car, they can do their work. They will standardize theirs. We cannot standardize on the industry level.
Right. Okay, so you're just saying that you will liaise with other industry alliances as appropriate for the specific domains that have domain knowledge that that you need in order to make sure that this is complete enough in functionality.
Yes.
And works properly for them. Okay, excellent. All right, I'm going to need to wrap up here because I've got a few things to do with the PGB. So, and I've already got people telling me they have to leave. I want to say thank you very much for spending this time with us. I understand this much better than I did before, and understand sort of your motivations and directions and goals here. I'll need to talk with my co-chair who wasn't able to attend today. I wish we had recorded this session ourselves because it would really help him a lot in understanding it. So thank you. That actually will be really helpful. I'm sure he'll find it fascinating and really helpful. So you might not get feedback from us as the chairs until next week when he's back. That's not a lack of interest, just letting you know he's physically out of town for the week, and I want to make sure to check with him. But you may get feedback from some other PGB members directly. We will, anyway, thank you very much. I like the project. I know you want to hear me say yes right now. I want to say yes. I just want to make sure that we have, that there's nothing else that I missed that we need to check on. Yep, excellent.
Thank
That
you.
sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. PGB members, please stay on. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, PGB, thanks everyone.